Hi guys, Wudijo here. I want to bring you a little video about followers because I never really made a guide on those and I do get quite some questions about them. So I decided to just make like this little video here to maybe clear it up and give you like a little bit of an idea of what to watch out for. So generally the free followers specialize in a different area. You have the Scoundrel, which is generally the best for crowd controlling. You have the Enchantress, which is generally best for kiting. And you have the Templar, which is generally best for defense and healing you. And I will go over them like a little bit more in detail as well. So just in general, in terms of items, you always want to have the Immortality Relic. Like all the followers have this, and they also have 2 more relics, but they generally all suck. And you need to have this Immortality Relic to they will never survive without it. So take that. Oculus Ring is really important, generally the must-have item. It's up to 85% on the affix. That gives you like a multiplicative damage boost, and you should really prioritize a high value on the Oculus Ring over stats. And generally also SHR is a really nice choice for an amulet, and pretty much the only useful amulet that you can put on a follower, and it just helps you to group up stuff a little bit more. Sometimes it can also screw you over, but generally it's pretty good. And in terms of the last ring, a lot of people go with Obsidian Ring simply because it rolls good stats, attack speed and cooldown. Keep in mind that Enchantress does not work with cooldown, but the other 2 followers do, and attack speed will help you to proc more as a Johan. And if you have a build that runs Unity, then the second ring will be Unity, and like that, with the Immortality Relic, you will get the 50% damage reduction for your build. As for the weapons, generally Thunder Fury is the prime choice for Templar and for Enchantress. So this helps to proc slow a little bit, and also has this attack speed slow, which is kind of helpful. And for the Scoundrel, you go with the Cluck Eye generally. And this weapon is pretty nice because you fire these chickens, and these chickens have like a mini stun and a knock-up effect. And that can help you with the crowd control a little bit. As for the Templar skills, you want to take the heal. The taunt is generally pretty terrible. And in the second row, it's either the heal or the slow, depending on if you really rely on the slow. But generally, Thunder Fury is doing a fine job. But yeah, if you have no other sources of slow, then probably take the slow. In the third row, it doesn't really matter. You have to discharge the stuns. That can be quite useful sometimes. And then the last row, you should usually always pick the first skill, because the second is really bad, since he knocks stuff really far away, as you're about to see here, and that will generally destroy all the pulling that you have done like in the past minute or so, and it can really screw you up. Then we have the Enchantress. You don't want to pick a skill in the first row, and if you have picked a skill already, you can't unlearn it anymore. They patched that out of the game, I don't know, for some reason. So you'll have to level a new character and not choose a skill, because both of them are really terrible for kiting. Second row, it's kind of like whatever, it's a little bit of damage reduction. Third row, you want to take the damage boost, and last row, the attack speed bonus. Because again, here, it's almost like with the rush to 8 or something from the Templar, this chicken effect is really bad for grouping stuff up. I mean, it's a quite strong crowd control, and if you want that, then yeah, okay, but generally, it's pretty bad. But Enchantress does follow you quite well when you move around. And that way she becomes like a really good follower for making pulls when you don't really need the healing or whatever. And last we have Scoundrel, so you just take like the slow and the blind and the stuns and all the stuff, because he's generally used for that. And generally Scoundrel is not really seen that often, but he is better than most people think, I would say. And personally I also haven't really used him, but that is only because I generally, like when I'm pushing Great Earths, then I need the Enchantress for the pulls, basically. But here you can see him in action, and you can actually crowd control stuff quite well. And I also kept shooting with the Cluck Eye now, because I didn't have one, so I kind of imitated a Scoundrel with the Cluck Eye. And you can see that one target can be controlled quite well. And one really important thing about the follower also is that you have to force teleport him, at least when you're pushing. And you can do that generally when you move around one screen away. And yeah, you kind of have to get a feel for the distance at which that happens. But generally, that is really important to not split up the pulls too much, because if you don't control your follower really well, then like one part of the monsters will run towards the follower, the other part to you, and then you can't really benefit from the area damage so well and so on, and stuff might just get stuck somewhere in a door or whatever. So keep an eye on a purple dot on the minimap, and force TP your follower whenever you need to. And this is also like pretty much about it. There's like some more general things about followers. One of them is probably that like a misconception many people have is that they can proc strongholds for you with as a join, for example. That is not true. So don't try to make that happen. And also just in general, don't try to make them do any damage. Like they are terrible. They are just there to like support you a little bit, mostly with the Orcus ring, and maybe some heals, and that's about it. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this little video here, and probably, I hope it might have helped to clear up some of these questions that you might have had. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you guys next time.